For centuries, right, you've heard the stories. Whispers of a giant, ape-like creature roaming the high, icy peaks of the Himalayas. Well, today, we're going to dive right into that legend. We're going to try and separate the cold, hard facts from the folklore of the Yeti.
Now get this. This isn't some ancient, dusty text. This was an official tweet from the Indian Army, just back in 2019. I mean, when a source that serious makes a claim that bold, well, you can bet the mystery came roaring back to life. It definitely makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
And that really is the big question we're tackling here. Is the Abominable Snowman just a story? Or could there actually be some undiscovered primate hiding out in the tallest mountains on Earth? All right, let's follow the evidence and see where it takes us.
Okay, first things first. To really get a grip on this whole mystery, we've got to go back to the beginning, back to the one moment that turned the Yeti from a local legend into a global sensation. And believe it or not, it all started with a single, pretty chilling photograph.
And there it is. This is the one. Picture this. It's 1951, and this really well-respected British mountaineer, Eric Shipton, is way up on the Menlung Glacier, and he stumbles across this. A massive footprint in the snow that looks eerily human-like. This single image got plastered in newspapers all over the world, and boom, just like that, the global hunt for the Yeti was officially on. Now, Shipton's photo was definitely the spark that lit the fire, but the story had been simmering for a long, long time. We're talking reports going all the way back to the 1830s. Then, in 1921, a journalist kind of messes up a translation of a local term, and we get this super dramatic name, Abominable Snowman. But yeah, after 1951, things just went into total overdrive. Suddenly you have these huge, expensive expeditions funded by newspapers and millionaires, all racing to be the first to find it. So what exactly were all these people looking for? Well, over the years, the eyewitness accounts have actually painted a really consistent picture. We're talking about a massive, ape-like creature, maybe 7 or 8 feet tall, that walks on 2 legs. It's covered in this reddish-brown or dark fur, has this awful smell, communicates with a whistle, and get this, apparently carries a stone as a weapon. Creepy, right?
And here's what's really fascinating. These are not new stories. They're ancient. I mean, they're literally woven into the fabric of Himalayan culture, going back thousands of years, even before Buddhism arrived in the region. The legend was so powerful that even Alexander the Great, when he was over there, he heard the stories and demanded to see a Yeti. The locals told him, sorry, can't be done. They can't survive down here at lower altitudes.
So with all that smoke, you can see why so many people were convinced there had to be a fire, right? But as more and more serious investigators started digging in, a completely different theory started to take shape. What if it wasn't a monster at all? What if it was all just a giant case of mistaken identity? And this idea really gets traction from this guy, Reinhold Messner. I mean, this is arguably the greatest mountaineer alive, and his story is wild. He started out as a total skeptic. Then he has this terrifying encounter that completely flips him. He becomes a true believer. But he doesn't stop there. He spends the next 12 years investigating. And what was his final conclusion after all that? The Yeti is a bear. Okay, so you're probably thinking, how on earth does a 4-legged bear make that giant 2-legged footprint? Well, the explanation is actually kind of genius, and it's surprisingly simple. An explorer named Daniel C. Taylor figured it out. So check this out. A bear walks through the snow, right? It places its back foot, its hind paw, partly on top of where its front paw just was. These prints overlap and create what looks like one single long footprint. Then the hind paw squishes down and actually erases the claw marks from the front print. And to top it all off, as the sun beats down, the snow melts and the track gets even bigger. It ends up looking exactly like the footprint of some mysterious giant creature. It's a perfect illusion. And here's the kicker. This is a really crucial piece of the puzzle. It turns out there was another photo from Shipton's original expedition, one that almost nobody ever saw. And in that photo, you can clearly see claw marks, and the shape looks way more like a bear's paw. So why was it basically buried? Well, it just wasn't as exciting, was it? It didn't fit the Abominable Snowman story that was selling newspapers like crazy.
Okay, footprints and stories are one thing, but now we're in the 21st century, and we have a tool that can cut right through all the speculation, DNA analysis. So let's put the stories aside and see what the science actually says.
So back in 2014, a big study at Oxford University decided to tackle this head-on. Scientists went out and gathered more than 30 different Yeti hair samples, stuff collected from monasteries, found at sighting spots, you name it. And while a couple of the first results were a little confusing, once they looked closer, it was clear.
Every single sample came from an animal we already know about. And most of them, they came from a rare type of Himalayan brown bear.
But they didn't stop there. In 2017, they did an even more detailed study on the 9 best-preserved Yeti samples they could find. And the results? Well, you can see them right here. They're pretty undeniable. A bunch were Himalayan brown bears, some were Asian black bears, a couple were Tibetan brown bears, and one was a dog. Yep, a dog. The big takeaway? Not a single one came back as an unknown primate. So, let's just be crystal clear on the most important number here. The number of samples that came from some unknown, mysterious primate like a Yeti? 0. The DNA evidence is pretty much case closed.
All right, so the footprints are explained, the DNA results are in. It really seems like the case is closed. Well, let's not just leave it there. Let's circle back a bit and think about what this whole thing, this enduring myth, can actually teach us. Remember that story from the beginning? That road worker in Arunachal Pradesh? Found with a broken neck, nothing stolen. The locals were absolutely convinced it was the work of a Yeti. So what really happened there? Well, when journalists from the BBC actually went and investigated, the whole sensational story just fell apart. The official police report, it said, cause of death unknown. No mention of a Yeti, no mention of footprints, and that weird hair they supposedly found, they tested it, it was a piece of a plant. It's really a classic example of how a tragic, unexplained event can get twisted and feed into a powerful local legend.
Okay, so if the Yeti isn't real, where did this incredibly powerful, long-lasting legend even come from? Well, there's a really compelling theory that points to a real-life giant ape. It was called Gigantopithecus. This thing was a 10-foot-tall ape that lived right there in that same region up until about 200,000 years ago. So you have to wonder, could our ancient human ancestors have seen this thing and passed down the memory through stories for thousands and thousands of years until it became the myth of the Yeti? It's a pretty cool thought, isn't it?
You know, the truth is, we don't really need to invent monsters to find a sense of wonder and mystery. Our own planet is still absolutely full of undiscovered life. I'm talking about real creatures that are way stranger and honestly more beautiful than any myth.
I mean, just look at this stuff. In just the past few years, scientists have found the Popa monkey in Myanmar. It looks like it's wearing little glasses. They found a lizard in Angola with no legs at all, and a glowing see-through mollusk in the deepest parts of the ocean. The world is still full of incredible secrets waiting to be found.
And that kind of brings us to the final big idea here. It's just human nature, isn't it? We love to chase the things we can't have, the mysteries, the myths that are just out of reach. But sometimes, in doing that, we completely neglect the amazing, real treasures that are already right here in our grasp.
So the Himalayas might not have Yetis, but they are home to the absolutely magnificent and unfortunately endangered snow leopard. So here's a final thought to leave you with. What if we took all that energy, all that passion and curiosity we spend chasing myths, and we channeled it into protecting the real, vulnerable marvels that actually share our planet? Now that sounds like a hunt that's truly worth joining.